Action! Today's guest is John Henry Richardson. He has appeared in over 400 films, TV shows, plays, and commercials. He co-stars as a series regular in Mom Don't Do That on Netflix and A Grunt's Life for Vet TV. John appeared on the Jimmy Kimmel Show along with Julia Roberts and George Clooney. The best part, John has a lot more to come. Please welcome John Henry Richardson. Welcome, John.
Thank you for inviting me, Konstantin. Good to be here.
Of course. So let's just dive in.
Yeah.
What was your call to adventure? What was your inciting incident to enter this entertainment industry world?
Well, it's, always been in my blood. It's always been. My mother worked right across the street here at Warner Brothers Studios. She was in the bookkeeping department, and she did all the payroll for all the movie stars. So at night, she'd come home, and she'd have to fill out all the checks. And I got to see, as a little boy, how much movie stars made at Warner Brothers. It was pretty big money when you're looking at it as a kid and you're getting a 5-cent allowance. And my father was a cameraman, a photographer, right? And so he had a studio, and he did a lot of the glamour photography and publicity photography for all the studios. And he taught me at the age of 10 and 11 years old how to light, how to lens, the difference between one lens and the other, how to do processing, developing, printing. So exposure, continuity, composition, all these things were taught to me at a very early age. So it just sort of rolled naturally. We grew up here in Burbank, California, though I'm originally from Virginia. My brother and I, we grew up here in Burbank, California. And a lot of the kids here in Burbank, they had parents working at the studios too. So, now you're going to school with 8 and 9-year-olds who have their Screen Actors Guild cards. And to them, it's a normal thing, because the parents that work at the studios bring the kids in, because if the kids can get in the union, they don't necessarily want them to have a career, but they can certainly get their college money that way. And so many of my buddies that I went to school with were in the union. Some were serious actors, some were just doing it for fun. But it really was more of a mom and pop neighborhood back then. It's changed big time since then.
Wow. How old were you when you got the union card?
I got my union card at 18. At 18.
Yeah. That's the earliest you can get it, right?
Well, no, you can get it as a child too. But, I wasn't working full time as a child. But for instance, I would work with, kid actors like Ron Howard, right? When he was Ronnie Howard, right? Before he was a director. And he was doing the Andy Griffith Show, and he was Opie on Mayberry. So a lot of those kids that I went to school with, I would, at the end of the day, 3 o'clock, I'd leave school. I'd walk down to Warner Brothers. They'd let me in. They'd say, "Hey, guys, it's Fernie's son." My mother, Fern. "Fernie's son's here. Come on in, Johnny." And I got a chance to go from soundstage to soundstage and see the back lots and play and all that stuff. It was like the world's biggest playground,
Wow, yeah, that's amazing.
So it was kind of performing was ingrained in me, as well as filmmaking and being on both sides of the camera. But it was a great early lesson. There was no place to learn that stuff in those days.
Is there a moment that you remember on set, like the first time that you were on like a professional set? What was it, maybe? And also, like, who was there? What was the environment? Maybe some interesting moment that you remember at this moment?
Well, there were so many of those moments. I remember watching The Fugitive. A good friend of ours, a schoolmate of mine, Suzanne Kent, took us to the studio to see them filming The Fugitive, right? The original Fugitive, and with Richard Jansen, right? Just a really good actor. And we got a chance to watch them, and he came backstage afterwards, and he gave us some information. But I'd say truly the most moving experience would be meeting Marlon Brando at Stella Adler studio here. Yeah, pretty amazing. And do I have a moment to talk about that at all?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So we're sitting here, and it's kind of like a gymnasium. And he's sitting in this little ring area, so no one can get to him. He's got a gray sweatshirt and khakis and loafers with no sandals or with no socks and kind of stubble. And he had this little table, and on this table were cigarettes, cigars, pipes, lighters, matches, smoking tobacco, and all these things. And he was just sitting there lighting cigarettes and smoking them and doing all these really interesting things. And finally, when he'd finished, we were allowed to come and ask a question. So I asked him, Mr. Brando, are you preparing for a role? Is that what you were doing? And he said, no, I'm quitting smoking, but I know that I'm going to play a character that will have to smoke. So I'm just sort of trying all these different ways in which to affect using cigarettes. And so he talked about, for instance, if you're a truck driver, say, you might have your cigarette. He says, you might hold your cigarette way up here because you got to be able to drive while you're smoking. And he showed us that, and I said, that was great, you know. And he says, or what if I'm rolling my own cigarettes, right? And I'm in a Western movie, and I'm wearing my 6 gun. Well, I got to be able to roll the cigarette, but never take my eyes off that other guy because I don't want him to draw his gun, right? He says, or maybe I even have to roll it with one hand. And he did. He literally rolled the cigarette with one hand while looking at us and never breaking eye contact as he licked it, tightened it, put it in his mouth, took out a stick match, put it around the back of his pants, lit it, and that was it. I mean, he just really was a perfectionist. So I learned a lot about, that's what acting is. That's what acting is. Creating moments, creating real live actions, and more than anything, the great lesson was that we learned that a prop or an action is an extension of a character to reveal something about the character that the character wouldn't ordinarily tell you about himself. Nobody wants to hear a guy doing a monologue talking about me, and my life. Right? That's why they invented the sidekick. You know, Ward Bond or Gabby Hayes was there. Well, you know what happened to the Duke? He was always, and then he'll tell you a long story and win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. And meanwhile, the iconic star, the John Wayne, the Clint Eastwood, you know, they would remain intact as a mystique. Right? So all these things, learning that early on, gave me a compass going into it. And it made creating roles just a ball, just a great time.
What was the first time that you applied those magical lessons that you learned from Marlon Brando in your own career?
Well, by the time I started doing, you know, when you first get out of high school, you're going to college. And so you're not putting full-time energy into a career. So you wind up doing theater, which is, I recommend everybody to do theater. Because there you're working in continuity, you know. There's no action, and we're doing scene 17. You know, you look at a screenplay, and let's say you got 52 scenes you're in. It's like a deck of cards, 52 scenes, and you know you're going to start here, and you're going to create an emotional arc for your character that's going to build and eventually pay off there. So you know how you want to create the character. But the filmmakers take all those scenes, they shuffle them up, and boom, you may do your death scene the first day on set. So you can't work in continuity. And so you have to remember every time you're doing a scene, and you know all this, right, Christian? Yeah. No. When you are on a movie set and you have to do a scene, you have to remember what happened before and what's going to happen after, so that will fit almost like a linchpin, and it becomes a seamless performance, right? So theater allows you to get back to building that arc and living that arc every night. We're doing it every night. So you can get used to that process of all the involvement of a character. And then when you go and do it in a film and it's out of sequence, you can still get there. So one complements the other. Film, if you're a theater actor, film is a great experience for acting because it's internal. There are no close-ups on stage. There are no retakes on stage. If you blow a line, you blew a line, and you got to live with it. In film, go back to one, back to one, back to one until you get it right. You know, so it's a different discipline, and I recommend it. I recommend it highly.
Yeah, there is definitely something beautiful in it when you don't have to do any takes. You just start and then go however it goes, and you finish it. Wouldn't it be interesting if it was in film like this? Like you start rolling camera and you plan it in a way so you don't have to reset anything. You just shoot it in one continuous take. I mean, there were like a few films done like that. They weren't that interesting. But what if you can do it like to make it really engaging and interesting?
Yeah, we were talking about the Russian arc.
Yeah, no, there's Russian arc. There was like some few others, and also there are some also feature films that have the kind of like the feeling of one take, but it's actually not one take. They
Yeah.
have like smart cuts
Yeah.
and transitions. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, certainly Birdman.
Yeah, the Birdman.
I
The
think
Birdman for sure.
Yeah, that's a great shot. No, I had to do a film once where we had to learn lines word for word. It was written by this gentleman who he came up from as a rap singer, and he wrote all these scenes. And you'd have certain lines where a guy would say, "No, no, I know," right? Is a line. No, no, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But he has him say it 3 times. No, no, I know. No, no, I know. No, no, I know. So you had to try to find ways to say it differently, right? And honestly, as we were memorizing, half of the cast dropped out because they just couldn't. He wanted it word for word, you know. That's of, not for, you know. And I didn't get it. But I wanted the discipline of trying it. And it wasn't until after I learned the lines that I realized, I found that rhythm that I couldn't find in rehearsing, because the words weren't just trippingly falling off the tongue. And that was such a great discipline, really great discipline. And it turned out to be a wonderful and strange film that we've never heard from since, called The Clinic.
The Clinic. Mm.
No, there was one scene that was a half an hour. 4 people in this one scene, a half an hour. And we would get through it and get through it and get through it. And I had the volume of most of the dialogue, ranting and ranting. And the one character at the end had one line that he had to say. And he blew it. And the director says, back to 1. I said, can't you please just cut to him for that one? No, back to 1. I wanted it in 1. I think he really just wanted to see if it could work. And we finally got it after about, 20 takes. Woo! When you're relying on the other actors to be there for you, what are you going to do? I felt really sorry for the castmate. That was hard for him.
Let's jump in the fun experience that you had recently, Jimmy Kimmel Show. How did you manage to get on Jimmy Kimmel Show? Not just get on Jimmy Kimmel Show, but you were touched by Julia Roberts. Yes, while George Clooney was like sitting nearby.
I know. You know, I couldn't believe it. It was wonderful. It was kind of a dream, you know. It was beard acting. You can thank this beard. Thank this beard. I actually get more work now with this beard than ever before. But no, I sent in my picture because they were looking for not a George Clooney lookalike, but a George Clooney, somebody that had a beard just like Clooney's, same thickness and density and, you know, characteristics. And so I submitted, and bam, they called me right away. They said, okay, fine. We're going to have 5 guys. You'll be the first one. And that's the one that Julia Roberts goes to first. And so she comes in with a blindfold, and George Clooney's sitting right next to me. It's like kind of surreal experience. You can imagine, can't you? So I'm sitting there, and I can't say a word, because I want her to think that I'm George Clooney. That's the whole game, right? Yeah. And she's got this silk blindfold on. So she comes over, and you've seen it, she starts really, really just as if she's trying to braille my face into memorization, you know? Uh-huh. And she's really close to it. And she's wondered about the bridge, not sure about the bridge. And I was pretty sure she was going to choose me. And at that moment, George Clooney, who didn't quite get the game, bless his heart, said, be sure to check the ears. So she knows now that I'm not him. So she immediately starts to move, but meanwhile, he moves to another place. So he's kind of playing, she's trying to catch him. But it was just such an incredible moment, It didn't really matter whether she thought it was him or not. Just to be touched by her so intensely, mm-hmm. You know, you could really see the actor coming out in her at that moment. And she wanted to get it right. It was important to her to get it right and to guess it, you know, and that shows the perfectionism of her artistry.
Yeah. And it took a while.
And George, I would say George, but George Clooney was just the coolest guy in the world to hang out with. Just real people, talks to you one-on-one, right? Yeah. We were kidding around about the idea, how should we enter when they call us in? He says, why don't we skip? Yeah, let's skip. And we were fooling, but you know, we kind of were conning the other guys. And when the show was all over, he gave us this, which is the Ocean's 11 Thoroughly Attentive Skin Ointment. You know, nice. We're not even sure what's in here, but I will tell you, it smells and tastes and so smooth, and my face is like a little baby's butt. I wish you could feel it. Anyway, Lotion's 11. Is that clever?
Awesome. Yeah.
Leave it to Clooney.
I saw it in that video. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, one little thing that I noticed about your I don't know how you call it, performance at the Jimmy Kimmel Show, that when the movie starts, when the clip starts, when everyone enters, you like really move forward, so you kind of like separate yourself from the crowd, purpose. So you can see you, you know, like as an individual, not a part of the group. And it's like, it was amazing. I thought, wow, that's pretty cool.
Well, actually, I had to go in first, and I always find that it's such a long distance from the stage entrance to the stage itself that I just took long strides, and I thought they were right with me. But George goes his own pace. Right. And he was the second man. He kind of was cruising in and they were cruising behind him. But yeah, I got there early and just hung out a little bit.
Yeah, that was fun. It
was a lot of fun. It was fun to share with the family because, you know, when you're an actor and you start appearing on TV shows, they'll see in a commercial, they'll be excited. But when they see you alongside a George Clooney and a Julia Roberts, they're just, shut the door. He's really there with them. Yeah, they were just, the family, they couldn't believe it. I said, hey, I couldn't believe it. It's one of those funny things, right?
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah. To me, especially, it's like coming from Russia, like, oh my God, you were like right there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah. So that was one of the fun moments in your career. And now let's talk a little bit about some setbacks, if you're comfortable. Is there a moment in your career that you consider a failure? How did you manage to overcome it?
Oh boy, I don't know. I'm sure I've had failures. You know, we all have failures, big and small. Look, there are great roles that I wanted that I didn't get. Right, and sometimes I would, early on in my career, I beat myself up about that, because I thought I had it. Also, sometimes, you know, you drive into the audition and you're doing it, you're driving it, you're sitting in the lobby, you're doing it. Finally, you go in and you do it. You got that one take, you do it. And maybe it felt good, maybe it didn't feel good, you know. But here's a weird thing, and I would call any actor who's watching this interview on this one, is that you've finished it now. Okay. Now I can let it go. I can relax. I can go back to my life. I can go get in the car, play the music I want. Don't have to worry about holding in my lines or my character choice, you know. But you're driving home and you're looking in the rearview mirror and you're doing it again. You're doing the scene again, even as you're driving home after you've done it. And it's the strangest phenomenon, you know, that we do those things, that we hold it in for that long. And maybe we think we're projecting back, that maybe they'll get this vibe, or, you know, well, who knows what ethereal things are going on in our heads. But it's a fascinating thing. So yeah, early on I kicked myself, but then I got to realize that, you know, to be really a good actor or any artist, you got to keep the child alive inside you. There's a little kid inside there. Sometimes they're a little damaged kid, someone that didn't get enough love, and that's why they're in this business. They want the attention. That's the wrong reason to be in it. You should never be in it for that reason. Then you're going to need therapy too, because it's never going to fill you up. It's never going to, suddenly you win an award and you think, now you want another one, and it never fills you up. You're addicted now at this point to having people fawn on you, and just you're trying to get your love, just trying to get the love, right? And so it's hard if you do something and it isn't quite what you thought it was going to be. You got to remember that it may have been your best performance. It may have been your best performance. You'll never know. Understanding that you will never know how you did, let it go. Let it go, right? And move on to the next one. You can't hold it in, right? Yeah. Because you're going to torture yourself. Why would you do that? You work so hard at it, and you didn't get it, then you kick yourself for not getting it. You know, you're like an abusive, your own abusive husband, you know. It's like, it's no good. You got to let that go, you know. There used to be a place in Hollywood back when we gave headshots and resumes, right? You've done that, haven't you, Konstantin, on the other side? Here's my headshot and here's a resume, right? Here's a guy, very clever guy. he came up with an idea of going into all of the casting director offices and studios, and once they finished auditions, taking all of those headshots and resumes, going into this little kind of a warehouse, and putting them in bins as if you're in a library or a record store, and actors could come in and buy them back. And which was pretty cool, because if you're using color photos, that was $1 a piece, man. It was a lot of money. So you could go into this place and you could go through a bin and find your name and pull out all of the submissions you had done. I thought, oh, that's cool. And you look to make sure they're not too bent so you can use them again. But you turn them over, and that's where you see the casting director's notes about your performance.
Mm-hmm.
And that is chilling. Most of the time, you don't remember which role it was for, right? And you're not even sure about the signature of the cast, but they will say things like pushed too hard, too young, too old, not handsome enough. A lot of personal comments, but in terms of the choices you made in your acting, so oftentimes it would be things like, the worst thing they can say is, didn't buy it. They sat here, you showed them your choice. Don't buy it. That's tough. That place is gone now. Fortunately, I guess that place is gone. And we don't give headshots out anymore. So that was an era, the end of an era.
Yeah, it reminded me, I don't know whether in English it translated well, but in Russia, the Stanislavski, he is famous for this phrase, "Не верю," which means, I don't believe. You know, he was saying it to like performers when he was in theater. "Не верю."
Yeah. I had that from a coach when I was at Pasadena Playhouse College. That's where I got my A degree, and before going to UCLA. And he would give you an improv up there. He says, no talking, just do the improv without, using the crutch of dialogue. He would refer to dialogue as a crutch. And I'm in the middle of what I think is a really great moment, and I'm acting like I'm shivering, I'm cold, and I don't believe you, John. I don't believe you, John. Okay, but I'm still up there. I'm on a chair on top of a table above everybody else, and they're seeing everything I'm doing. So you keep trying. No, I'm not buying it, John. I don't believe you. And that makes you lose all the artifices really fast. You just, okay, stop this. Stop showing. Trust yourself enough to just do it. Just be. Be. It's hard to just be, isn't it?
So, John, tell us a little bit about your international experience. You've been to Paris Film Academy. You taught at the Hollywood Academy in Kiev, and also one more.
Yeah, Paris, Lagos, Nigeria for the Nollywood actors, right? And I work as a filmmaker, as an actor, and as a teacher, and I managed to juggle all three, and I always have, because one feeds the other. I always preferred learning the craft of filmmaking, acting, all those things from practitioners more than from theorists, Yeah. But the way our educational system is, it's starting to change for the better. But for the longest time, say you want to be an actor and you figure you should go to college. Okay. Well, you want to be an actor in film, not in theater. Unless you're in New York, maybe you will do theater, but no one would come to Hollywood to be in theater, right?
Yeah.
So you go to college and you say, okay, I want to learn film acting. He says, oh, acting, great. Go to theater arts. No, but that's stage acting. That's theater. I want to do movies. Well, then you got to go to filmmaking. You got to become a filmmaker. No, but I want to act. So really, you almost have both degrees. Now, meanwhile, on the other side of the campus, you have the filmmaking department, and they're not calling the theater arts actors to be in their films. They ought to. One side should work with the other, because one thing that anybody that gets a filmmaking degree suffers from is learning how to direct actors. They don't have courses in it. They don't know how to do it. I just finished a gig that was a nightmare because it was a first-time director. Just didn't know how to work with actors. Just didn't know how to basically move them around like they were models. He should have hired models, actually, And so there was no place to learn that. So I jumped at the opportunity to create that acting for film course at the New York Film Academy. All right. And that's where I met Marina Stoda. Right. So indirectly now I met you. And there I had a chance to now lay out a course of learning all the techniques of acting for film, all the subtextual work, the power of stillness, the not blinking, the finding your film voice. You know, theater voice, you use your diaphragm. It's from the diaphragm. So it's really like a brass instrument. And it's all here because I'm projecting. I have to project from that. I need that bass. And there I'm talking like this. But on film, if you try to talk like that, the sound man's going to strangle you. So you learn that, okay, so if stage acting is a brass instrument, then film acting is a reed instrument. It's like a sexy saxophone, which is very close to the human voice, right? So when you're breathing and speaking, you're breathing through your chest. So you put your hand on your chest and you just go, just sigh, ah. You start to feel this little vibration in that, okay, that's where the film actor is. Now I can talk here. I never have to raise my voice. I can find nuances and colors and all kinds of things to do with my voice because I'm using a film voice. Nobody teaches that anywhere. Half the people that we're teaching that we're actors never heard of it either. But once you showed it to them and you made them listen to their own voice and they realize how distorted it is when you do from the diaphragmatic, it doesn't work, right? So those are things that I had to teach, particularly in Nollywood, because the African actors, God love them, bring total emotionality. Everything is serious and emotional and, really, it's always at the brink of life, and it's great. So you don't have to give them that part of it. But now you take that, and now we got to take that and bring it down, make it for film, make it smaller, put it in a small box, sit on your hands, don't act with your hands, things like that. And they found incredible power to be able to sit there, look at a dot on the wall, visualize it as the person they're talking to, and speak for 1 minute without blinking. And a shot that starts like this and slowly moves in and becomes this, so that by the end of it, they're this close. And they understand the essence of film acting, and that is so much more delicate and gentle and refined, and they really have to kind of recreate their art a little bit. The good news is the preparation for a role, the backdrop you do, everything you do in the way of creating a character, right? It holds for either format. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't change, but the actual technique is what is the difference. And there's no place to learn these things.
Yeah,
you learn from watching. But even when you're watching a movie, oh, God, that's interesting. What did he do? You don't know what he did or where it came from. So you can't take it because then you're just imitating, you're just mimicking. So to find those wonderful, essential things is what really matters. So to impart that information to people in foreign countries, and hopefully it grows. Hopefully it blossoms from there. And it gives them an opportunity to have a film career. When you look at Bollywood films, you look at Indian films, they're very, very over the top, very celebratory and, frothy, and colorful. And it's a sunsplash of colors, right? And so much joy. But it's over the top. And we would call it over the top acting.
Yeah.
Same thing with Africa. Doesn't matter. In Africa, it's over the top. You got to find the technique to get you through because the technique will save you. Of course, now everybody's doing selfies. So you need it more than ever now. But hopefully they're learning it just by doing selfies. It's a good thing for them, the newer actors. But working internationally was great because we exchanged ideas and thoughts. And basically, every country I've been to, they make movies the same as we make them. It's basically the same. They don't cut in the camera. It's wide shot, medium, then we go into the close-ups, and that's it. You start wide and you work your way into the closures. And actors have to learn to be able to fit both disciplines. And I think a lot of them got it. And the question is, will they continue and do it? Or will they fall back into the bad habits? That's the fascinating part. In Taiwan and China, it's the same thing. It's a bit bigger. It's all a bit bigger, right? And more demonstrative. They're demonstrating how they feel about this. They're upset. They're demonstrating they're upset. But when you get rid of all that stuff and some of the actors in Taiwan, I would have to say, are stronger than the actors I've seen in China because they have rid themselves of those bad habits. They become more I guess you'd have to say, Americanized in their approach to film acting.
There is this book by Stanislavski that I was reading in Russia, My Life in Art, and it also has like sequels and stuff. There, everything you need to know to avoid all of the. He literally lists all of those mistakes that you mentioned and some more, how he was building his acting capabilities from pretty much zero to where he ended up.
Yeah. Yes.
And my favorite exercise that he would describe in the book was about this there's famous actor who came to their theater at that time, and he sat on a chair on the theater stage. The exercise is to just sit in the chair. That was the assignment, to just sit in the chair, and that's your act. That's what you need to do. And he was sitting in a chair, and everyone was just amazed by the way he sat in that chair. You cannot watch it. You cannot learn it by just watching it on the television. You don't know what's happening in his head. That's what nobody tells you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's what I find fascinating about the whole. He never called it a method, Stanislavski. We know that we called it a system of acting, and he also did say that even though I like to use emotional memory, you don't have to.
No.
But it became a departure between him, as you know, between him and Chekhov, because Chekhov, as organic as he was, also believed that the show must go on. So you got to get behind that organic and give it a little kick, but not kick it to such a point that it becomes over the top. Mm-hmm. And that was the balancing act. Mm-hmm. It's funny. We had an exchange program with Moscow Art Theater when we were at the New York Film Academy. So all these actors came from Russia. Any of the method teachers had a hard time with them because they would say, no, that's not what Stanislavski meant by the magic if. And you realize, well, okay, he wrote his original everything in Russian, translated it to French, then translated it to English. So by the time we got it, it had been, well, you know this, right? It's pretty distorted by the time we got it. So it's wonderful to hear from trained Russian actors what he really means.
Yeah, because you read it in Russian, you read it in the language that it was written, so you, I guess, understand more. Because some things get lost in translation as well, I think. Yeah. And everyone tries to create their own system, whatever. What I personally think is that all those systems is just a tool to get you to be true, to give a truthful experience.
Yes.
And if this helps you, yes. If that helps you, sure. As long as you get where you need to go.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, Konstantin. Can't. I refer to it as when I'm teaching a bit of the history of acting and how we got to where we are now, how to become to organic acting. I said, okay, well, let's look at the lineage. It's Stanislavski's tree. He planted the seeds and he grew this tree, and then Chekhov, he had a branch over here. He went over here. And Stella Adler, she went to the same side, Strasberg even went to the same side, But then you got Meisner over here, and you got Chubbuck, and you have these others who are kind of adding their own wrinkle. Really, the wrinkle that they all had to add is, okay, we all want to get organic performances. Our approach is different. We all have different approaches. And really, the main thing is the exercises that we give you. The exercises, the tools, particularly the improvisational exercises, are what set us apart. You look at Chekhov, and you think about his psychological gesture. Mm-hmm. Jack Nicholson, he would read a script and he said, "This is an award-winning script, probably going to win an Oscar, but I can't find a psychological gesture for the character, so I'm not going to take this role." That's how much he believed in Chekhov, a man who died 20 years before he became an actor. No. It's amazing that Chekhov has staying power, but it's really another branch of Stanislavski.
Yeah.
And finding ways to try, the old idea, one of the very first acting primers written said, if you have to portray pain, put a pebble in your shoe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, they never said, think about the first pet you ever had and when it died in your arms. I mean, they never suggested go back to a real life experience, emotional memory, as Stanislavski called it. He never talked about this. No, just put a pebble in your shoe, which is interesting enough because now people who are considered method actors will put the pebble in the shoe and use it as a substitution point for the pain. We know we use substitution, right? And that's all acceptable. So it all comes from the same tree, for my money. And whatever works for you. If you say you got to cry on cue, how are you going to do it? You know, I mean, that's sometimes you will just hold in tension and that will do it. Sometimes if you're sitting and you have to have a moment of tension, you just put your arms down and lift your body up with your arms, right? And now I'm sitting here and my arms are holding me up and I'm not any different. We're just chatting, right? But you can see that there's some internal tension.
Yeah, you definitely have some
Now
tension.
it's only a gimmick. Now I lose my hands and the tension is gone. Silly little tool, but it works. So we keep inventing our own tools, don't we?
Yeah, for sure. So, John, how do you go from, oh, I want to act in a movie or a TV show to actually being cast in a show like Mom, Don't Do That on Netflix?
Well, listen, you know, I got Mom for two reasons. One, because I had to do a self-audition across the waters because they were auditioning from Taiwan, right, from Taipei, and I'm here in Los Angeles. That's one of the reasons I got it. The other reason I got it is because of COVID. They were going to go to Australia to find an Australian actor to play the character, my character, right? Robert. And but they had to have 14 days of quarantine, hotel quarantine. They couldn't do that. So I said, okay, we'll go back. We'll get somebody from Los Angeles. So they got me. So thank you, COVID. That doesn't sound right, does it? Commercial for COVID.
That's
Thanks,
crazy.
COVID. You're never going to see that. But
yeah.
But it turned out to be a life-changing experience, and I love it. And I just got a call from the production company that my name is being submitted for the Golden Bell Award, which is their Oscar for best supporting actor, and the three ladies are being submitted for best actress and best supporting actress. So that's in great company. So we'll see.
That's pretty cool. And it's like everyone can go and watch it now. Go on Netflix, just type Mom, Don't Do That, and check it out.
Yeah.
I think you appear in the episode number 7, 8, 9, and something else, right?
Well, yeah, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's the last three, 8, 9, 10. Was it 11 episodes? I think we had 11 episodes where we really get together and that's where we go on the road trip together and we fall in love and then we get married and all those things happen. And that was such a joy. You know, I got to see the whole island. We went all around the island shooting in that van. And
nice.
It was, you know, I really try to do as much international work as I can. I love the Taiwanese directors. Really love them. Oh, they were just wonderful because they could communicate one-on-one with you, you know. And I had this one great scene toward the end of the last show where I'm sitting down at now my new family's, you know, at a table outside in the marketplace, the night market, right? And I'm setting another place, right? Taking some of my food, moving the cups, so setting another place over there, right? And the director says, John, it's a ritual. That's all he had to say. It's a ritual. And the ritual is, I'm honoring the deceased husband and father of the girls and inviting him to have dinner with us. And so once I know what it's for, now I'm carefully placing and gently putting food and gently pouring just the exact same amount of beer in the glasses, ours, and putting it there and lifting up and say, in this way, the family is always together. And couldn't say it without crying. Can't even say it now without getting emotional, you know, because it's such a beautiful gesture, right? The symbolism and purity of the Taiwanese film community and the Taiwanese people is just, I'll tell you, I could live there. I could live there easily. It's just a wonderful place. They're so innocent. There's this beautiful naivete and innocence. And, you know, there's no cynicism or sarcasm in their language. Like if I say, thanks, you're a big help. We know that I don't mean it, right? But they will look at it and says, oh, thank you. You're a big help. Say, no, you don't really mean it. Well, then why do I say it? Because, oh, shit. It's a terrible, nasty American habit. Don't do it.
Mom, don't do that.
Your mom, don't do that.
Yeah. Feature films versus TV shows. Yeah. Which one do you think is better as a job, as an actor?
Well, it's changed over the years. I never wanted, from the beginning, I always wanted to do film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, movies,
Mm-hmm.
because I like watching on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like watching on the small screen, right? And all the stars that I grew up watching were the big screen actors, right? And so, no, I wanted that. But you know, the more I work and the longer I've been at it, you come to the point where you realize everybody wants an episodic now, because it's long range employment. You don't have to be hunting around for jobs. I do. I'm blessed to be working. I work all the time. But you know, every time you finish a job, it's find another job. I mean, imagine going on 100 job interviews a year, 300 job interviews a year. That's what it is. Your whole life is job interviews.
That's part of the job.
And nobody pays you for that.
Yeah.
You could go back again and again on callback. It's between you and him, and then he gets it. It's okay. Do I get anything? Do I get a baseball cap? Do I get nothing? Nothing. You get nothing.
Or maybe a water bottle from the audition.
Yeah. Or something like that. Give me something like that.
So let's talk a little bit about this poster that is behind you. Where is she now?
Oh, yeah. Where is she now? Yeah. Well, that's my baby right there.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
I came to a point of realizing as I had been teaching at the New York Film Academy and got that whole program up. And that was about 13 years that I was with them. But I could always take time off and go do a film, which is great. I could take a break for a few months and work. So I was doing both, which I really liked. But I got to a point where I said, you know, I really want to go out and make my own films and you know, concentrate more on acting and bring that to teaching. You have to keep bringing more to teaching. And of course, since COVID, everything's changed so much anyway, right? So I thought, what I want to do is I want to go around the world and visit my students, because I have 3,000 students throughout the world. And I want to just visit them and make a documentary about them, right? But I realized that wasn't a good idea, because you know, imagine you come to an acting school and you're getting a lot of pressure. I had a couple of my students from Scandinavia, you know, from Sweden and Norway and Finland, right? Mm-hmm. They went back home and they got a bachelor's degree, and they go back home, but there's no acting, there's no film there. Maybe there's theater, maybe there's commercials, but they really don't have a career there. So the vast majority of my students have gone home and they're not working. And so I realized, okay, we have to change this from a documentary into something else. And so what we decided to do was create the scenario based on a true story, which is one of my students disappearing the night before her graduation. Just up and disappeared. You know, we didn't think that much about it, because a lot of kids are flaky when they're in the arts. People in the arts are a little flaky, you know, artsy flag. And so we figured it was maybe something personal. We don't know what but she disappeared, Marita. And then as I'm doing the interviews in London, people will say, well, gee, have you talked to your other students? Who else are you be seeing? Well, I contacted about 100 students. I heard from all of them except Marita. Oh, Marita. Well, you know, she does. And then they tell me a Marita story. And I'd go into, you know, I'd go from London to Stockholm, and the people there told me Marita stories. I said, I'm going to go to Norway. I'm going to find out what happened to her. And so I went to Norway, and of course, she's not there. Her father's passed away. There's nobody at the house. Went to his gravesite, no sign of any family plot or anything. Nobody knows. She's just disappeared. But her friend got a postcard from her. And the postcard was from Salzburg. So I decide I'm going to see if I can find her in Salzburg. And I drag along some of my students. So it goes from being an interview with students, documentary, to a docu-mystery. And so we decided to keep our cameras open and record everything as we go along to find out what would happen. And we found out. We went from Salzburg to Vienna to Stuttgart and Amsterdam. You know, and it always ends in Amsterdam. And we went to into Stuttgart for the Volksfest, right? The Oktoberfest, 125,000 drunken Germans, and we were having chase scenes through. So we got all this great production value because it was all handheld camera. So we could use it with ambient lighting and just bounce boards, and we could go anywhere we wanted. And the film company, the film permit offices would interview us and say, well, what are you using? I'm not using this HMC 150 camera. He says, well, where's all the lights and where's the crew? It's just us. My students, they've taken the film classes, so they know how to bounce light. And so we all crewed one another and just had a great time. Went to 7 countries. And then we decided, okay, let's take it to the film festival circuit. Went to the London International Film Fest. We won Best Film and Best Director. Then we went to Berlin, won Best Director and Best Editing. We just kept winning awards. And we said, okay, we got something. And so now it's a question of marketing, how to market it. Not every film can be done this way, you know. But the thing that occurred to me, even when we were working on the backlots, Universal in classes, our production workshops were on Thursdays and Saturdays, and we go on all the great Universal Studio backlots. So you'd be doing a film on Wisteria Lane, where the Desperate Housewives were, or where the Scorpion King, or there's the Watchtower for the Back to the Future, and all these famous places. And Austin Powers was shot there. So the kids had a great time shooting there, and we realized we should start doing original stuff. And the great thing about the backlot is you don't have time for lighting. So maybe you have 10, 12 students in your class, and you're going to do 5 or 6 scenes. And you're going to use whatever backdrop there is, right? And you come to realize, you know, when you're on a real movie set and you're an actor, if it's a 12-hour day, you probably only spend a half an hour in front of that camera. Because all the rest of the time, they're lighting. They're lighting. And then the craft people have to come in and set up that as well. But it's lighting. And you realize, have you ever heard an audience member, anybody that isn't in the business, say, oh, I saw that movie. I love the lighting. They never talk about the lighting, you know. And I realized,
I want to add to that, sorry, that the best lighting is when you don't notice it.
absolutely. Just like the best acting. Yeah. Well, the composers will say that about the music. If you're noticing the music, then the music was overshadowing. Can't really say that with Jaws, but that, you know, it's an argument. But I thought, okay. So maybe this new way of doing things is a way to go, because we could get that camera, we could go out, we could shoot a scene in real time without cutting, because I was so used to using this camera that I could move it around and do a little ballet with it without drawing attention to it. Like, it always bothers me if you have 3 people standing there, but the camera's moving. Mm-hmm. They're not moving. How can you move? Right? The reality becomes distorted, you know? And so we learned a lot about, you know, new rules of cinema. And now we could shoot with any backdrop we want and have all these scenes, you know, have a great deal more weight, right? And drama to them. You know, we went into St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. We went to the Great Wheel, also in Vienna. We were able to shoot in the red light district of Amsterdam. You're not supposed to shoot in the red light district of Amsterdam, but it's just one little camera here, no lights or anything. Shooting our way. It was a great deal of fun.
Yeah, where people can find the movie.
They can't see it yet because we haven't taken it to market. What we did was we raised some more money and we spinned it off into a TV series. Because Where Is She Now ends in a crime. It ends in a crime. And we all got back home and, you know, kind of, we witnessed it, but we didn't have anything to do with it. So we figure our lives will be normal. We're going to go home. But then, you know, a year later, that's when the TV series begins. Some of us are having nightmares. Some of us are, you know, experiencing all these psychological problems because we never dealt with what we had witnessed. So we realized, okay, we got to go back and somehow figure out, you know, what happened. And in going back, we find out it was not what we thought it was. And of course, you know, and the chase continues. And so we shot on the Bahamas for a week, and it got stuck in Hurricane Hermione, got us. And we had some hurricane shots, and we shot in Mumbai, India, and in Berlin, and in Dresden, Germany, and in Prague, and just had a great time.
Yeah, sounds like a James Bond movie.
It is like that. It is only it's more like a James Bond home movie.
Yeah.
The one question people would say at the film festivals would be, "Was that scripted?" I said, "Yes." They couldn't tell. They couldn't tell that it was scripted because it was so organic, you know. Anyway, there's a lot to be liked about it, and I'm really anxious to take it to the next step. Now, you asked, how can we see it? Look, when we were doing these film festivals, you see the same filmmakers there, right? They go from fest to fest to fest, so you get to know them. And so we'd win at this fest, and they'd win at the next fest. So there was this kind of, camaraderie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fellow soldiers, Every one of them got distribution for their films, right? Amazon, Hulu, and that stuff. But none of them, not one of them, got upfront money.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave their firstborn child away, right? And 3 years go by, 5 years go by, no money comes in. So their backers have given up on making another film with them, and they're stuck. So everybody's a onesie filmmaker. One film, because distributors will take your money, but they won't give you money up front. They take your movie, but they won't give you money up front, which is pretty sad. Amazon would have given us a deal, but Amazon, they're going to put your film up there for $14, and all you get is $1.40. You get 10%, they get 90%. And you say, how can we ever make money? And they say, well, you got to be a content generator. You got to, do others. No, you don't, because I could have 1 million people, and trust me, they're not going to pay $14 to see me in a movie. So it's that whole UGC thing is really just trying to get actors to turn into salespeople, and that's what they become, hawking somebody's product in their living room. And so it's not for me. It's not for me. I got to get upfront money, or I got to get a distribution deal whereby they say, okay, we'll fund your second season.
Show me the money.
Yeah, abalula. No, we want to keep working. We want to keep making more of the episodes, but we're not going to do it without a streamer or a distributor that's going to go in with us on it. Yeah. With Mom Don't Do That, that was privately funded, but Netflix put in so much money in marketing community. They had entire buildings covered with posters, and they really went to town in building awareness to the show, and that's what's great about their work.
Let me challenge your creativity a little bit. This is the question that I ask my guests towards the end of the interview. So here it goes. If you were an extraterrestrial from a perfect world where everything is nicely organized and in harmony, and then you arrive to our world with all of its issues and things going on, what would be the one thing that you would fix as an extraterrestrial?
Well, right now, particularly under the climate we're in, I would, from an art, again, still coming from the artist standpoint, right? I'm more on the emotional side. I'm more the right brain than the left brain, linear. I would wish that everyone would live a life as a quest for truth, that you would be more curious about the world around you. That if you say that history doesn't matter, yes, it does, because you're reliving it. And if you don't want to keep reliving mistakes of the past, learn from them. So many millennials feel that whatever happened before 1990 doesn't matter to us. Yeah, it should. It does. Because everything is cyclical. What happened with Hitler is happening in other countries and could be happening here. If everyone could be on a quest for honesty, then the con men wouldn't take over. Yeah. And the greed-driven people wouldn't take over. And that's the main thing. That's the main thing, because we got a lot of problems in our country, but there are a lot of problems in a lot of countries. But when you have a dishonesty and a divide because you believe this and I believe that, because we're getting it from different sources, and there are people down there pushing our hot buttons, Rupert Murdochs of the world, that don't care about anything but just mess with us because it's fun to watch. The sadistic little pleasure game they have, because I got mine, to hell with you, you go get yours. People like that are the enemy. A thinking, moral person is what we need at the top. Compassionate people who care about one another, and forget about division, racism, forget about all that. I don't know how I could ever change that. The day the earth stood still, if I could come out and give the, the robot, come and give you the message from us, I'm not going to come out. Okay, folks, you are all messed up. You got to get your shit together, and I'm going to go away. In 50 years, we'll be back. But you better have changed by then, And meanwhile, blow up the place and go. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine ever being an extraterrestrial. Maybe we all are.
Maybe.
That probably wasn't a very good answer.
We're probably an extraterrestrial for someone else, I think the best place to kind of see how it could be is to watch the Star Trek TV series, especially the old ones, to see how the world can work.
No, particularly the old ones, because so many of the things they talked about with the old ones have come to pass.
Exactly. Yeah.
50 years later,
Mm-hmm.
60 years later. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
For sure.
Do you think that's why movies like Star Wars are so popular and superhero movies are so popular? It's not just escapism. It shows a world that is better.
Or better ways of living. Not sure about Star Wars.
Yeah.
it's like a war, literally. But
yeah, it is.
Star Trek I like more in that essence, because it really shows how, different societies can live in harmony.
True.
So,
yeah, it was a very moralistic show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was also at a time where, like Rod Serling, when he created Twilight Zone, it was during the Red Scare, the famous, the Cold War era. And he says, okay, if we want to show injustice and prejudice and things like that, it has to be on some planet, someplace else, and not here.
Yeah.
And that's how they were able to get away with it.
Yeah. I think that's in general. That's why people create science fiction and fantasy to kind of like show our modern problems in a different environment, so we can kind of like look at it from a side and see whether we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. What was your answer to that question?
Well, if I was an extraterrestrial and I come to our planet and I would focus on one thing, I think I would definitely cancel social media. I would just like turn off the social media.
Amen.
It's more like drastic approach.
No, but you're right. Remember, it was originally referred to as the information superhighway.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Bill Clinton called it, right? I thought, we need that. It's the opinion superhighway. Any opinion you want, you don't even have to bother to prove it. Nobody's going to bother to look it up.
Yeah.
It's made people lazier, among so many other things. It's terrible what's happened to it. And for auditioning, no way to go. No way to go. We want to go back to our audition studios again. We want to meet the casting director, see him face to face. We want them to provide the reader. We want them to provide the camera. We want them to provide the lighting. Mm-hmm. But now we do it all. We even have to be the editor.
And the background.
Yeah, yes. It's wrong. I don't know if it's going to change, though. I don't know if it's going to go back. The unions have to get behind it. No. The unions have to say, no, you can't. You can't give actors 14 pages to audition or do. The worst are the pre-screens. I produced a film a few years back called Get Married or Die. And Michael Feinstein, who was from Russia, also from Moscow, the director, great guy.
Well, I'm from St. Petersburg.
Well, there you go. There you go. The other big town. And we made this film and put it out for distributors and never got a dime. Haven't seen any money at all from it, anything at all. It's just been kind of languishing because of the way they do business now, these guys. And it's interesting because I had hoped that we'd come to Russia with it and I'd have a chance to work with the folks at the Moscow Art Theater. And now, with the Ukraine war and all that, who knows if I'll ever go back, It's all changed.
Yeah.
It's all changed.
So now we arrived at the final question that I end every episode. And I call it Obsession of the Week. It could be anything. It could be a favorite movie that you're obsessed with this week, or a sandwich from particular store that you love. For example, for me, my obsession of this week is a miso soup with noodles by Any Chance. I get it from Whole Foods. It's just so good. I don't know why. It makes me feel good. Yeah. Particularly this week. So what is your obsession? What is something that you're really obsessed with this week?
One of the things I'm obsessed with is I have a library of all the films that we did back when I was at New York Film Academy. Just like, imagine DVDs stacked together.
Wow.
In a shelf, 2 shelves this big, right? And it goes back 20 some years. So I really need to go through that because I have a number of students that want to see it, and I want to see it again, see how much of it holds up. Some of the actors that I worked with that became movie stars are in there, and I want to be able to look at their early works and send them off to them. A lot of my students contact me and say, John, did you have our scene anymore that we did? Oh, you mean the one we did on the back lot in 2004? Well, let me look and see if I can find it. So I owe it to them to go through my library and try and organize it a bit more. So that's kind of my ongoing struggle. It's probably more than just this week. It's going to take a long time to do that.
How people can find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, if they look at my name, John Henry Richardson, they can see me on Facebook, on Instagram. And if you go to IMDb, you can see a list of all my films, the good, bad, and the ugly. And there are a lot of clips there. If they go on Instagram, they can see many clips from my films and excerpts from Mom, Don't Do That, and also from Where Are We Now and Where Is She Now, the TV series. We laid a couple of preview clips in there. So that's a good place to go. They can always friend request me. I don't do the whole followers thing. I don't believe in the followers. I just go for friends. So that's the best place, I think. And I do answer messages if people ask me questions or they want to know anything. I'll get back to them. Just be patient. I'll get there as quick as I can.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you for coming today.
My pleasure, Konstantin. Next time I'm going to interview you, ask you about your acting and directing and photography career and now your hosting career and all that.
Sure.
What's your favorite of all those things? Do you have a preference?
Directing.